Darren McCarty grew up in Canada, just 40 minutes from Detroit, and loved hockey from the start.
Find your passion, find something that you just want more than anything.
Tonight's Hardcore Pawn. A new first family has taken over reality TV and the world of pawn. That's right, pawn.
It's been over a decade since Hardcore Pawn first turned the cameras on at American Jewelry and Loan, and the show's cast became some of the most recognizable faces on cable television. From explosive confrontations to unforgettable deals, they gave fans 9 seasons of raw, unfiltered drama. But behind the fame, not every story ended the way fans hoped. Some of the most beloved members have tragically passed away, and most viewers never even heard about it. So who are they, and what really happened? Join us as we count down 10 Hardcore Pawn cast members who are no longer with us. Number 10. Brian Robo Jackson. Anyone who actually sat through the first season of Hardcore Pawn probably remembers Robo. He was the massive guy standing by the door at American Jewelry and Loan back when the show was just starting to go off the rails. He didn't say much, but he didn't really have to. While everyone else was screaming over a broken DVD player, he just stood there looking like he had everything under control. He was basically the only reason the whole shop didn't burn down in the first week, and fans loved him for it. Robo did not last long. In the first season, he was reportedly sent home following an incident with an employee that the show never fully explained on camera. He came back briefly, appeared a handful more times, and then vanished entirely. No farewell, no explanation. No mention of his name in later seasons, as if he had never been part of the show at all. The mystery of what happened to Robo after he ditched the show is one of those things that just never got answered. There were no sit-down interviews and no annoying social media posts. There isn't even a public record of where he ended up after those few months in front of the cameras. It's pretty wild that someone present for the start of such a massive hit could just vanish into thin air without leaving a single trace. Robo was the first face fans trusted on Hardcore Pawn, and his disappearance set the tone for everything that would follow. Number 9. Byron the Gentle Giant. Byron stepped into one of the toughest spots in the entire building. When Big Joe got fired in the season 6 finale for allegedly stealing scrap gold from the shop he was paid to protect, someone had to fill the gap. That person was Byron. He had been working security at American Jewelry and Loan since season 6, while quietly learning how the shop worked. When the head security job finally opened up, he was the one Les and Seth turned to. The fans actually respected Byron because he was one of the only people in that shop who wasn't a walking disaster. He just showed up, stayed calm, and did his job without causing a scene. After Big Joe went off the rails and ruined everyone's trust, Byron was the only reason the security team didn't look like a total circus. He was a regular guy doing real work, while everyone else was busy losing their minds, so he ended up looking like a saint just by being normal. The story of what happened to Byron after the show went dark in 2014 is basically a blank page. People who actually knew the crew back then say life after the cancellation was a complete mess for the staff who weren't in the Gold family. Most of these guys weren't exactly stars with agents or big brand deals. They were just regular workers who happened to be on TV for a while. Byron has completely vanished since the show got the axe. No public appearances, 0 interviews, and not even a trace of a social media account. In the world of Hardcore Pawn, the people who actually kept the place from imploding were the ones who got screwed the worst once the cameras stopped moving. Byron gave the shop its stability when it needed it most, and then the shop moved on without him, the way it always did. Number 8. Felix Tikman. Felix was impossible to miss because that massive beard was basically its own character on the show. He spent 6 seasons working security at American Jewelry and Loan And in a building where everyone else was screaming at the top of their lungs, he was usually the only one staying quiet. He did not start fights or act like a drama queen just to get more screen time. He just showed up and did the job for years, which is probably why the audience actually liked him. The truth about what happened to Felix after the show is actually pretty grim, and nowhere near the glamorous life people expect from television. He ended up dealing with some massive health problems that completely drained his bank account and left him in a terrible position. While the shop owners were busy getting rich off the back of all that drama, the people who actually kept the building safe were left to rot without any support or even a basic shout-out. Felix packed his bags and moved to Austin back in 2016. Since that move, he's basically become a ghost. There are no social media posts, no annoying tell-all interviews, and zero traces of what he's been up to since the cameras stopped following him around. People who claim to know the behind-the-scenes drama at the pawn shop say his exit wasn't exactly a clean break. Felix spent 6 seasons protecting everyone else at American Jewelry and Loan. When the show ended, there was no one left to protect him. Number 7. Rich Pyle, 25 years. That is how long Rich Pyle had been at American Jewelry and Loan before a single camera ever showed up. He was not just the store manager. He was the institutional backbone of the entire operation. He knew the customers by name. He knew the inventory, the systems, and the rhythms of the shop in a way that took decades to build. And when Hardcore Pawn launched in 2010, Rich became something the show had not planned for, a genuine fan favorite. The spiky hair was a massive red flag from the start, but people stuck around for the actual vibe. Rich Pyle had a weirdly calm energy that let him handle total disasters without losing his mind on camera. Fans ended up liking him way more than the producers ever planned for. He was just a regular guy trapped in a building full of lunatics. People kept watching because he felt like the only person in the entire place who wasn't just acting for a paycheck. The way Rich got dumped was a complete disaster. He was put on probation after some loud argument with Les, and then he just got kicked out for good. Bobby Janek eventually showed up on TikTok to claim that even though Rich knew the business, the tiny bit of reality TV fame started rotting his brain and made him stop caring about the actual work. Whether that is the truth or just some bitter backstage drama, the ending is the same. Rich was gone, and the show just kept filming like nothing happened. He went on to host a National Geographic series called Meltdown, about the recycling of precious metals, which gave him a brief second act in television. But as various fan communities noted over the years, Rich's public presence faded significantly after that show ended. His current status has not been publicly confirmed, and fans who have tried to reach him through social media in recent years have largely been met with silence. Rich Pyle worked on Hardcore Pawn for 25 years before the show started and almost 3 years after it ended. The show barely acknowledged his departure. Number 6. Big Joe. Joel Shannon, fondly known as Big Joe, was essentially a human brick wall. For 6 seasons of Hardcore Pawn, he was the only thing stopping the Gold family from getting steamrolled by the chaos walking through the front door. He was massive, always around, and basically kept the shop from devolving into a full-blown riot every day. Fans actually liked him because he seemed like the only person in the entire building who wasn't constantly losing his mind, which is precisely why what happened at the end of Season 6 hit so hard. Big Joe was caught on camera stealing scrap gold from the store he had spent years guarding. The footage was undeniable. There was nothing to argue about, nothing to explain away. He was arrested, he was fired, and the whole thing played out in the Season 6 finale, watched by millions of viewers who could not believe what they were seeing. The betrayal basically killed the entire show. Big Joe did more than just walk off with some gold. He supposedly trashed the only reason anyone actually watched, which was the belief that the shop was real and grounded. Once he was in handcuffs, it was impossible to keep pretending the whole workplace family thing was anything more than a cheap script. It turns out, the only thing more fake than the staged screaming matches was the idea that anyone in that building actually had each other's backs. Since all that drama went down, Big Joe has apparently put his life back together and runs a trucking business in Livonia, Michigan. He has stayed completely away from the cameras and hasn't said a word about the scandal. But nobody really knows what all that mess cost him behind the scenes, far away from the shop and the film crew. Getting arrested on national television is the kind of public embarrassment that doesn't just go away just because a show gets pulled off the air. Big Joe was the most trusted man in the building, and that made his fall the most devastating betrayal the Hardcore Pawn family ever experienced. Number 5. Christina Silas. Christina was one of the window clerks at American Jewelry and Loan, one of the first faces customers saw when they walked through the door. She was a familiar, likable presence across multiple seasons, one of those background cast members who made the shop feel populated and alive. She was not the main character. She was not in the title credits. But regular viewers recognized her and liked her, in the way you like someone who shows up reliably and does their job without drama. Season 8 hit a new low when Christina got busted stealing on camera. It was easily the most awkward moment in the history of the show. Usually, the drama is just people yelling over nonsense to get their face on TV, but this felt different. It was quiet, weird, and just plain depressing. This wasn't some random person off the street acting out for 5 minutes of fame. It was a longtime employee who was supposed to be part of the crew getting caught stabbing everyone in the back. What happened to Christina after she got dragged into the spotlight has never been officially reported. She just vanished, and the production team kept moving like she was never there. People who actually know what happened to her later say her life was basically ruined by having that arrest aired for millions of people to watch. Christina made one terrible mistake in a life full of real pressures, and the cameras made sure the whole country saw it. Number 4. Darren McCarty. The most memorable part of Darren McCarty showing up on Hardcore Pawn isn't the fact that he walked in with a giant alligator skin. It is the fact that Les Gold actually offered a pro athlete a job, and the guy was desperate enough to take it. He didn't just stand around for a quick cameo either. He actually tried to learn the business, which led to him overpaying for some Red Wings jerseys like a total amateur. He had to sign the jerseys himself just to fix his own mistake and keep the shop from losing money. The Darren McCarty who showed up on Hardcore Pawn was clearly in the middle of a total nosedive. He spent years being honest about his mess, and that included various trips to rehab, starting way back in the 90s while he was still playing. He filed for bankruptcy in 2005, and by the time the cameras at the shop caught him, his personal life was reportedly a complete disaster. As CBS Detroit reported in 2012, McCarty was dealing with death threats, legal disputes, and personal chaos during the same period he was connected to Hardcore Pawn. The report painted a picture of a man who had been a champion hero reduced to fighting battles that had nothing to do with hockey and everything to do with the wreckage that addiction and fame can leave behind. Darren has been talking more about his recovery lately and still hangs around with the Red Wings alumni. His story is not really a tragedy, as much as it is just a guy trying to survive the chaos in one piece. For anyone who watched him on the show, it is a permanent reminder that a camera only catches a tiny sliver of the actual story. Darren McCarty won 4 Stanley Cups and nearly lost everything else. and Hardcore Pawn caught him right in the middle of that fight. Number 3. The Guitar Man. He never gave his name. He came in with his friend, carrying an electric guitar, and the reason he needed the money was one of the most unexpected the show had ever heard: a DNA test. The negotiation went badly. The price offered was not what he needed. And rather than walk out quietly, he destroyed the guitar right there on the floor of American Jewelry and Loan, smashing it in front of the staff, the cameras, and millions of future viewers before leaving Seth to clean up the wreckage. That clip went viral way before people even knew what viral meant. It ended up being one of the most shared and replayed moments in the history of the entire show. Even without a name or an introduction, that guy became one of the most recognizable faces on the screen. People on forums spent years arguing about whether the whole thing was staged or actually real. Fans turned it into a meme, and creators kept clipping it long after the show was canceled and forgotten. Behind that explosive, camera-ready freakout was a guy who was actually desperate enough to walk into a pawn shop with a guitar and a story about needing cash for a DNA test. People who actually know the Detroit neighborhood where these customers lived say a lot of the famous faces from the show had a rough time after their episodes aired. The Guitar Man gave Hardcore Pawn one of its most unforgettable moments, and then walked back into a life the cameras never followed. Number 2. Lily Gold. Lily Gold has been married to Les for almost 50 years and was a regular face at the shop during the first season of the show. She usually just hovered in the background as the office manager, acting like the only quiet person in a family that never stopped screaming. Then, after season 1 ended, she just vanished from the cameras. There was no big exit and no explanation. She was just gone. For fans of the show, Lily's disappearance from the camera was one of those details that lingered. She was Les's foundation. She had been his partner since 1975, long before the cameras, long before American Jewelry and Loan became a national television phenomenon. And yet, the show that made her family famous chose to tell that story almost entirely without her. The cameras missed how much Hardcore Pawn actually trashed the Gold family behind closed doors. People who were supposedly in the inner circle say Lily didn't just stop filming because she was bored. Watching her family turn their screaming matches into national entertainment allegedly wrecked her in ways that never made it into the script. It turns out that turning your private life into a reality TV circus comes with a massive personal bill that nobody ever bothers to talk about. Lily Gold built the foundation that Les Gold stood on for 50 years, and the show she helped make possible told that story without her in it. Number 1. The Customers of Detroit. Number 1 does not belong to a single name. Because the most profound and heartbreaking loss connected to the world of Hardcore Pawn cannot be reduced to one person. It belongs to the hundreds of Detroit residents who came through the doors of American Jewelry and Loan during the show's 9-season run, many of them at the absolute lowest points of their lives, and who were filmed in their most vulnerable moments for the entertainment of millions of viewers across the country. These were not actors, and they were not looking to be famous. They were just regular people who needed cash for rent, food, or medical bills. They showed up because that pawn shop on 8 Mile was one of the only places left that would actually take their stuff and give them a few dollars in return. They walked in and handed over wedding rings, family heirlooms, and instruments they probably loved. People stood in front of cameras they never really agreed to be around and handed over bits of their lives across a glass counter for some quick cash. The opioid and fentanyl crisis that tore through Detroit's working-class neighborhoods in the 2010s allegedly took out a lot of the familiar faces and locals who walked through American Jewelry and Loan while the show was filming. It turns out that those colorful characters the audience laughed at were actually dealing with a level of misery that a reality TV contract couldn't even begin to cover. Do you think the people who made it unforgettable received what they truly deserved? Which of these stories hit you the hardest? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.